With the massive influx of new collectors in 2021, it was only inevitable to see the big players of the grading community, PSA, BGS, and CGC, all slow down their services. And what that did was pave the way for a bunch of new modern grading companies to put their hat in the ring. And while it may be very easy to register a company, print a label in Photoshop, and buy some slabs off AliExpress, it's not easy to build a new company, to start something from scratch and create a brand that people honestly, genuinely believe in. I'm very vocal about new modern grading companies over at Twitch, and I talk about it quite a lot, but recently I watched a video by SM Pratt where he spoke in detail about how modern grading companies will more than likely fail. And I agree with a lot of the points he made in the video, but when I was done watching it, it really made me think about what modern grading companies can do to succeed. And I really do think there are a lot of opportunities for new players to really make a dent in the game. There's a lot of generic factors that PokerTubers will talk about when they discuss whether they think a new grading company is going to be successful or not. Stuff like the slab design, the label design, the cost effectiveness of submitting your cards to get graded. And while those are all very important factors, they're not really critical to the success of a company or a new brand. And I think it's kind of fun to speculate on the potential success of a new company, because if you back the right horse, you could be in a pretty good position 5, 10, 15, or 20 years from now. I think a really important factor is disruption. Disruption keeps industries thriving, it keeps competitors on their toes, and it keeps things fresh for consumers. Without disruption, I think companies can get very complacent. Things can get very stale very quickly for consumers, and bad practices can become accepted because there's no alternative that's just as good or better. So if a modern company enters the fray and brings something new, fresh, and exciting that's still relevant and not ultra gimmicky, I think it'd be really effective. It could be something as simple as unique slab labels for highly sought after cards. That's something that differentiates the PSA 10s, the BGS 10s from the 10s of a new grading company. And yeah, I know at face value, it kind of seems a little gimmicky. The label changes color depending on how valuable or rare the card is, but it adds a little bit of spice. It adds a little bit of flavor. There's no rule book to this. There's no reason why the slabs and the labels need to be uniform. And it gets people talking. It adds this extra allure of rareness and rarity to it. You might be in the market for that card in 5 or 10 years. And if you're presented with one option that's scarcer and there's less of it than the other, you may be more inclined to buy it up. Now, we all know who the market leaders, who the most reputable grading companies are in this industry, the three pillars, if you will. It's PSA, it's BGS, and it's CGC. And the reason for that is because they have been around for a long time, but because they have built a very strong reputation in the scene. How have they built that reputation? Really simple. They've been around for a long time. They've been consistent with their grading to a degree, and they have a very broad, large, publicly accessible database of all the cards they've ever graded. Now, a database is essential for a modern grading company to succeed. Without it, they will fail. I will not touch them unless there is a database there that I can publicly, easily access from the internet. It's not enough for them to have an Excel sheet on their computer where they've got all the cards graded and they can go and check whether it's authentic or not. If I can't see it, it's not gonna work. And what I see so often with these new companies is they don't have a database from day one. You know, they may promise a database down the line, and it's just not enough. From the day that the service has launched, it has not instilled any confidence in me. And from there, it's very difficult to get it back. Now, if you were paying attention very carefully to what I just said, I want to touch on that topic a little bit more. Grading companies tend to launch not ready. They're rushing to get into the market because they know the demand is there and they don't want to waste any time. So they're launching their service, you know, they've got a slab, they've got a label, you can submit, that's it. They tick those boxes and they say, we're ready to go. However, when a new service launches haphazardly, for me, the blinkers go off, the warning lights go off, and I just don't want to touch it, because to me, it says they're rushing. And if they're rushing in generating their company and starting their brand up, then they could be rushing in other areas too. Another very critical flaw with that is that they launch and they say, this is our product, this is our service, this is it, take it or leave it. And what that does is it gives them two options long-term. One, they basically stick with the way that they do things. You know, they stick with the label they got, they stick with the slab they got, and they never change it. And if they don't change it and people don't like it, then people will stop using the service. The second path they can go down is changing it to suit the consumer's needs. So if they get feedback on day one, you know, people are saying, you know, your label's trash, we don't want to use it. Okay, fine. So they change the label a few months down the line. again, that's a massive, massive failure, because all those people that graded, day one with them are left with the crappy label, the crappy service. And then you've already got this disparity between your grading, and it's only been about 3 to 6 months. So any service that rushes to market, in my opinion, it's gonna fail. They have no short-term plan and they got no long-term plan. They're just diving headfirst. However, what that does is it presents a fantastic opportunity for a modern grading company to come in and say, hey, this is the service that we're thinking of launching, or this is what we're planning to launch soon. What do you think of it? Basically, they publicly focus test their new service, their new product, and they get the feedback before they launch, so that when they do launch, everything is ready to go. The label, everyone's happy with it. The slab type, it's perfect. The text, everything, all those little finicky details that turn people off from new grading companies, they've already been stamped out because they've already done that feedback process. And I think any modern grading company that is doing that is giving themselves the biggest leg up in the industry possible, because it's actually doing two things. One, as I said, it's publicly focus testing the service and the product so that when they do launch, everything's ready to go, everybody's happy, and it's a very smooth start. They basically hit the ground running. But two, it shows that they're very actively involved in the community. They're very actively interested in hearing what their consumer, what their clients think, and they're very, very transparent. That communication pathway is open. That gives them another advantage that other grading companies are just not utilizing right now. When you submit a card to PSA, BGS, CGC, what happens? You send it, you wait, you pray to see updates on the website, and oftentimes you don't really know what they mean. And if you don't understand something, there's nobody that you can go and ask, no one that you can talk to that can explain things to you. They're just way too busy for it. But what if there was a grading company where you could speak to somebody, where you could ask a question, where you could learn a little bit about why your card graded well or why it didn't? I think that's a massive, massive opportunity for any new grading company. Any grading company that is using it is doing themselves a massive favor, because this industry is crying out for that. So many times you send a card to PSA, BGS, it comes back, it gets a bad grade. You cannot see why. You've looked at it under a microscope. You've looked at this card and it gets a 7. You don't know why. There's often other times where people crack the slab of a card that's graded poorly, send it back, and then it comes back with a higher grade, but you don't know why. Communication and transparency is essential for any new company that is trying to build a foundation of trust, reputation early to succeed. Without it from day one, it is going to inevitably fail. Okay, so I talked about two pretty key strategies there. Going to the market first for feedback before you launch, so you launch effectively, and having open lines of communication so that you can speak to your consumers, speak to your clients, and understand them, and they can understand you. Having said that, and there's always an asterisk with me, you know how I roll, it's not enough to just do those things unless you've got some kind of relevant standing or reputation already in the community. If some random company just starts up, they go to Twitter, they put a Facebook ad out there, and they ask for feedback, not many people are really gonna look at it. But if someone who's been around for a while, someone that everybody knows does it, then they're gonna make a little bit more of a splash, and it's gonna be way more effective. Now, it's 2021, and I know you guys aren't silly, so I am very clearly talking about the effect of an influencer in a new grading company. But just because an influencer is involved, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It actually can be a really, really good thing if they utilize that influence effectively. And when I say effectively, I don't mean they spam it in all their videos, they shove it down your throat. Personally, I don't think that's an effective way of building a new brand and building trust. It's quite disingenuous. What I mean by effective is tying yourself to the brand, tying your influence and your reputation that you've built, that you've spent a long time building, to a new brand, to a new company, to the point where if the company fails and if the brand fails, you go down with the ship. That's massive, massive amount of accountability. And I really think that is a very bold strategy that can pay off dividends. The power of influencers can be used for nefarious reasons online, but it can really, truly be used for good reasons too. And I do genuinely believe that. Often when a new grading company launches, they'll give a few free slabs to influencers on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and you'll see a lot of random YouTubers, PokeTubers just start talking about some random slab grading company that you've never heard of. And that's so fake. That company is just trying to get their name out there, but they're not trying to tie it to anything. And the influencer, the YouTuber, they don't really care either. They're just getting a free thing, and that's a big tick for them. For me, those things have the opposite effect, and you guys aren't silly either. You see right through it too, and it's why those new grading companies become irrelevant, within 2 to 3 months. It's actually quite crazy how many pop up, disappear, get replaced. However, influencers that are totally accountable, that believe in the company, the brand that they're building so much to the point that they put it all on the line, they're accountable for it too, have a massive amount to gain. With these things, that kind of goes one of two ways on YouTube. It's either a massive pump or dump, or it is genuine and they really do believe in it. Now, modern companies that are trying this approach, that are going down this road, I don't think they're stupid enough to go for that pump and dump strategy. There's just way too much to lose. So I think modern companies that are doing this are actually quite smart and will honestly succeed long term. Provided any loose ends are tied up before the company launches, it's essentially a blank slate, and that's very rare. You only get that opportunity once. What that means is that a new grading company can launch, and their reputation is set at zero. It's neither good or bad. Now, you might know this already, you might not, but between the three big players, there is pretty checkered history of grading altered cards that have been trimmed, or regrading cards that they knew were altered before. Some grading companies have graded cards that they know have been stolen. So those kind of things, they're really dodgy, and they don't instill a lot of confidence in me long term. If that's what I know about, then what are the things that I don't know about? However, if there's a new company that doesn't have that checkered history, that doesn't have that bad blood, well then, hey, if they're ticking all the other boxes, if they're doing all the other things really well, I'm more inclined to check them out. And if after a year they do provide a really good service, people really do pick up on it, it's going to reflect very well on the influencers that did back it, that did believe in it, right? I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about the people tied with the brand, to the point that, it keeps bouncing off of each other. If the influencer's doing well, the company's doing well. If the company's doing well, then it reflects well on the influencer, and it keeps going back and forth. Disconnect the idea or the thought that, an influencer being involved is just them pumping up something that they have interest in, and rather see it as somebody who's trying to create something new with the influence that they've built and the reputation and trust that they've built. This is more a case of a disruptor entering the space, somebody who's been around it for a while, been involved in the hobby, graded cards, and seen what they do and they don't like, and then said probably to themselves, you know what? I can do this, I can do what they're already doing, and I can actually do it better. While influencer culture can seem very nefarious and disingenuous at times, I don't think one single content creator, one single influencer can completely and entirely prop up a new grading service. Collectors that have been grading cards for years, for decades, they're just not going to fall for it. And if they don't come on board as well, the service won't succeed. So if you can't win over the collectors and the people that grade that are already established and they're firmly entrenched in that PSA, BGS, CGC culture, if you can't win them over, ultimately, long term, it's not going to succeed. You won't be able to find success from just the short-term collectors that have entered the hobby the last year or two. And it's those short-term collectors that are really getting hyped up by the face value stuff, by the videos, by the influencer culture. But when you couple that influencer aspect, that component of it, to the other factors like, excellent service, open lines of communication, transparency, feedback, a really affordable price, global appeal, which is also really important, then they can find massive success. There is a huge gaping hole in the grading service right now. There is a massive call for change, for disruption, for a new player to come in and do something different that wins people over. So why not take it? If it's there, go for it. I back it. I really do believe in people that are trying to change the game that way. Like I said at the start of the video, things like the slab and how thick it is, or the label and the text size and the placement, those things are important because aesthetically you are looking at the card, but you can fix them. They're boring to talk about if that new service is already actively trying to improve that before they even launch. What I'm interested in is the long-term vision, whether they got a plan, whether it looks like they genuinely believe in the service and the company that they're building before they even launch. And any service that's doing that, I honestly vibe with. I really do resonate with it. Don't get it twisted though. That doesn't mean I'm gonna go and launch My Name is Jeff Grading in 5 or 10 years. You're gonna see videos all over this channel. But if there's a grading service out there doing those things, I might try them out. Till next time, make sure to like, subscribe, let me know what you think below. Catch me over at twitch.tv/okJLUV. I'm out of here.